to the first episode, the premiere episode of Retro Rambling. Unfortunately, I gave myself a deadline to complete this episode, and being as stubborn as I am, I decided to stick to it. Downside being, I'm a little short on content, so here's the intro again. Just kidding. Okay, so, what? Oh my god, I'm sorry, this shouldn't be on camera. You just, look at that, the things some people leave lying around. I mean, that's at least 4 months past its sell-by date. So the show's divided into 4 different categories. That was 3, this is 4, the 4-finger. And it's divided into those 4 categories for a reason. The first of which we'll begin with now. And this section is called, Where Have You Been All My Life? Star of our first episode, the Sega Saturn. Unlike some other Sega consoles, you never fail me.
Oh, what the bloody hell's that supposed to mean?
Oh, I didn't see you there, that's awkward. Excuse me one moment. Yes, where have you been all my life? Sega Saturn. The Sega Saturn is a wonderful console, but unfortunately for me, during the early 90s and the mid-90s, I was a Nintendo and Sony fanboy. So when this was released, naturally, it was a piece of crap. Also, I thought, as it turns out, I've probably had an equal amount of enjoyment out of this as I did Sony's PlayStation, which of course was mind-blowing at the time. But it goes to show, perhaps sometimes your first impressions of things can be a little wrong. Granted, then I was a kid, but the same sort of thing still happens these days. This section of the show is called The Import Scene. It's going to differ from episode to episode, but basically it's about games, strangely enough, that I've imported. Today's episode specifically targets PlayStation 1 games in the long boxes, which, as I've discussed before, I'm a tremendous fan of. So we're going to have a look at the ones I have here. This is Alien Trilogy for PS1, of course. And the beauty of these things is when you open them up, you get absolutely massive manuals on the inside, which is amazing. I think they did a limited run of these maybe for about a year, maybe 2 years, from about 95 to 96. And then they slowly sort of moved on to the CD cases, which I believe I have one down here. That, which is probably more recognisable if you've ever imported an American game off of the internet. And you know, that's fine, I like those too. I thought the PAL ones were sort of more unique, kind of chunky. I've got one of those here as well. You know, that's the kind of standard thing most Brits are used to. But these really do stand out a mile. And I've actually got quite a few, so let's have a look at some of the others. Here we have Lemmings. And the interesting thing about this is, as you can see there, it's got this sort of plastic that's sort of etched out there, which is kind of cool. Strangely, in the later releases, that plastic, which is actually etched out, is just drawn onto the cardboard, like here in Street Fighter Alpha, which is a really unusual decision. But yeah, apparently that's the way these things were going. The Lemmings one in particular is quite interesting. Look at that. It's got a wonderful manual. Obviously the disc's in there, but even the back of the box has artwork on it. In this case, it's just the 3D logo over and over again. But still, you need to have something extra. Taking that one step further is Capcom's Resident Evil. Unfortunately, I don't have the manual for this. When you open it up, I remove the CD, you actually get some unique artwork of like the laboratory towards the end of the game. That's absolutely fantastic. Again, it's just, you know, you don't get these with the sort of CD cases. This is something special that they could do with these larger boxes. And for whatever reason, they stopped making them. I imagine they are more expensive to produce, so that's probably one. Other than that, we have Theme Park, which I already showed in a previous video. Again, pretty much the same thing. Massive manual, massive box. Just looks wonderful. Warhawk, which is again an early title. I think there's a launch title, in fact, for the PlayStation 1. Again, don't think there's any artwork. Just a basic one like that. There's 2 standard forms here. You've got these plastic cases, and these ones that are sort of more made of card, most likely, but they're still quite sturdy. The final one I have, or the final ones ones, I should say. Somewhere around here is Ridge Racer, but Tekken. It's another good one, another launch title, and it has some really interesting artwork. Unfortunately, the case is busted. If you look at that, that doesn't appear anywhere in the game. It's quite unique. So let's have a look what else we have here. I believe I've shown them all. Aha! Okay, so I did have one more. This is Doom for the PS1. Love this game so much. And again, look at this. Absolutely lovely. Just a full-on cardboard fold out. Look at that manual. This thing's enormous. I know they're phasing out manuals nowadays, which really sort of disappoints me because I love them. And look at that. It's just absolutely enormous. And again, to give you a size comparison, I'll get the NBA Jam one out. Unfortunately, the front's missing, but that's your typical PAL instruction manual. And it's barely anything by comparison. It's just amazing. If you're into your artwork, these things are so good to collect. Again, this has got the drawn-on version of that plastic bit for some reason. But yeah, very proud of that one there. Quite a few games come out for it. I think Crazy Ivan, Twisted Metal, Jumping Flash, those are 3 that I want to get hold of. There is a wide variety, and like I say, if you live in the UK, you've got to import them to get them, but it's well worth it because they're absolutely awesome, and you get to experience the games in 60 Hz. And a lot of PlayStation games are horrible in 50 Hz, so that's worth looking out for.
Oh, what the bloody hell's that supposed to mean? There was a time when my name meant something to this place. Phew.